Well, you having a good summer? It's been hot. I saw those faces. Oh, it's hot. And it's humid, right? It's been humid. Well, it's that or shoveling snow. Right? One thing I do like about this summer that we've had this sermon series about movies. I love movies. There's two great things about movies. One is that movies bring people together. Even strangers, right, in a movie theater. You always grab a husband, a wife, family, friends, girlfriends, boyfriends, all get together and you go to the movies. And the second thing I love about movies is that there's always a story. There's some story that's told, and then that story gets spread. Do you ever notice how when you go to the movies, the next thing you find yourself doing is, hey, I went to the movies. We saw a great movie. It was about X, Y, Z, going on, and you tell the whole story. And it gets to the point where for people who haven't even seen movies, we know the story. We know the Star Wars stories, we know the stories of all the different things that have happened in different movies. And so the stories get carried on and they get passed on. And that's kind of what I really love about the Bible. Scripture is filled with stories. Story upon story that we get to gather together with 2 or 3 of our friends and we get to open up and dig deep and then we get to tell those stories to other people. There are stories in there about battles and violence and armies. There's stories in there about romance. There's stories in there that are adult eyes only. We don't even bring those up in church on Sunday. There's stories about so many different things that happen in different lives of us that we can carry on and share and that we can move forward. This morning we're going to jump right into the deep end of a story. It's a story that we find in the Old Testament. It's really played out in the Old Testament books of Exodus, Numbers, and Joshua. And it's the story of the transition of leadership. It's leadership transition between a guy by the name of Moses. Does anybody know Moses? You probably saw the movie, didn't you? Right? Moses, great guy. And Moses is getting ready to actually pass away, and so he has to transition his leadership to somebody else. And this guy's name is Joshua. Now, Joshua was a brand new guy. There's no movies about Joshua that I know of right now out there. But Joshua, that's who I consider to be our superhero of the story. And so the story actually starts with Moses. You know what Moses did, right? What did Moses do? Moses led the people out of Egypt, literally, like a big parade. Moses is the one who answered the call that God placed upon his heart. And Moses went and he approached Pharaoh, and he kept saying to Pharaoh, what? Let my people go. And so finally he convinces Pharaoh, and he leads the people out of Egypt. He leads them out of oppression. He leads them out of slavery. He leads them out of hunger and famine and disease. And he literally leads them way out into the wilderness, someplace they had never been before. Brand new place. And he's taking them somewhere that God has called him to lead them to. It's a place called the Promised Land. What kind of land was it? Promised. Now remember, God never goes back on a promise. And so Moses leads them right up to the edge, right up to the borderline, and they're looking into this land, and they see it is vast, it is enormous. And so they decide they're going to send 12 spies into this land. And the spies are going to go in and they're going to sneak around and see what it looks like and to see what they need to prepare themselves for. Now the 12 spies represent the 12 tribes of the people of God, called Israelites. And so they go in and they're in there for days and weeks. And so they come back to bring a report of what they saw and what they heard. And to basically to give their conclusion about moving forward into what land? Promised land. Well, 10 of them come back. 10 of them come back, and they come back filled with fear. They come running into the crowds and to the people and to Moses, and they say, oh, no, we cannot go in there. It is horrible. It is horrible. There are giants in there. Literally, giants. We felt like grasshoppers amongst them. We were just waiting at any minute for them to stomp us out. We can't can't go there. We will never defeat them. We are too small. We are too weak. We can't do it. Well, the crowds, they began to mumble and murmur. And you know what crowds do, right? They grumble. And then they start to complain. And then they turn to Moses. And they said, hey, you. Why did you lead us out here? This is horrible. We can't go in there. It's all filled with giants. And what do? They turn around. They actually turn around and head to Egypt and say, yeah, we liked it better back there. Back there where we were starving, and we were slaves, and we were oppressed, and we had famine and disease. And we liked it better back there because we knew what it was all about. Because that's the way it should be. Because that's the way we've always done it. And the murmuring, and the complaining, and the retreating continue to happen. But then along comes the other two spies. They come back. First spy's name is Joshua. And he comes back with his buddy Caleb. And they come back and they're like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? This is the best thing we've ever seen. This is the land exactly as God had told us. Exactly as God had promised to us. It's filled with milk and honey. It's lush. It's beautiful. We can live forever. We'll have the greatest lives ever. It is gorgeous. It is beautiful. Well, what about those giants? Joshua said, what giants? This is land that God promised us. As long as we follow God's lead, God said he would protect us. God promised this land was ours. As long as we trust in God, we'll step on them. We can do this. You know what a crowd is like, right? Very rarely do we gather together as a crowd and find something positive. We always turn negative. No, that's not going to happen. Joshua and Caleb, they must have been out there doing something funny because there is no way we can conquer giants. We need to go back. We need to be things the way they always were. You know, often when our council meets here in church, when our leadership team gets together and someone says to me, well, that's not the way we always do it. You can see my face begin to twist and turn and get really... Those words just grate on me like scratching a chalkboard. What do you mean the way we always used to do it? Well, you know, Pastor, like when we used to set up the folding chairs in church on Easter because there was too many people. We want that again. And I think to myself, that's not going to happen. That was then. This is now. And things change. You know, in the 10 years that I've been here at this church, we've had a few changes. A couple of things have been reorganized. Some things have been cleaned up and moved around. We painted some walls. We redid some worship service organization. We've had all sorts of different people come and expose us to all sorts of different things. And people have said to me, oh, Pastor, that'll never work. That's not how we've done it before. But that was then. And this is now. And things change, don't they? Whether we like it or not, things change. And we don't know what's coming. We don't know what's going to be in the future. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, except we are Joshua people, aren't we? Are we not descendants of Joshua? Can you not go somewhere in your world and tell people, my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-granddaddy was Joshua? And Joshua was the one who led the people of Israel into what land? Promised land. The land that God promised. You know, in the past 10 years, we've added microphones. We've added screens. We watch videos. We listen to music. We have air conditioning. Amen is right. Right, Norm? Amen. Amen. We've made changes. But there have been people along the way who always wanted to turn around. There have been people who've always wanted to live in Egypt. There are people who have always said, oh, no, I want it done this way. I want it at my time. I want this kind of music. I want this kind of pew cushion. I want this color. I want. And then they've actually said to me, it's my way or the highway. Let me tell you what God has to say to that. The people of Moses said, we want to go back to Egypt. We want to go back where we know that someone's going to give us 1 square meal a day. They actually said to Moses, it's our way or the highway. And God said, there's the highway. And out they went. For 40 years, those people walked in the wilderness, in circles, lost. It took 40 years for all those naysayers and doubters of God's promise to finally die off before God could call Joshua up and to make him the next leader. And that's when we get to this part of the story. Joshua is now the leader, and Joshua says, Moses has now died. And we are ready to move into what land? Promised land. And we don't know what's going to be there, but one thing we do know is that God said, as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not fail you or forsake you. Be strong and courageous, for you shall be given possession of the land that I swore to your ancestors, and I swore to give it to them. No one will be able to stand against you all the days of your life. Now, I don't know about you, but how do you argue with words like that? When God comes down and says to you, be strong and courageous, do you turn and run? No. We know that God's promises never fail. We know that He never turns and runs. We know that if we are Joshua people, then we always look forward with hope. With hope. Always looking forward. It's the very first principle of being a descendant of Joshua. It's the very first principle of being a descendant of a superhero. Is that we all look forward with hope. Some of our newer members here at church may not know some of these things. But way back when, there was a huge explosion of the Methodist religion in southern New Jersey. It was started by a man by the name of Bishop Asbury. He came through on a horse and he started these, what we now call small groups, but they also call family studies. And they met in people's homes all around our area. It started with a church that was centrally located in our area. And so they called it Central. But then they realized people couldn't travel that far, so they started to break out and they started to build more buildings and have more family groups all around our area so that the fishermen didn't have to come so far from the ports and so that the inlanders didn't have to travel so far from their farms. And we created all of these churches in our area. Now some of you would say that this building goes back to 1950s. But actually I would say it goes back farther than that. Way back in the 1920s, the first original building was built. And today, the only thing we have in that building is 3 classrooms and some restrooms. We've grown. And we've continued to build and expand and improve. But I say it doesn't even start in the 1920s. It goes even further than that. The legacy of this congregation goes all the way back to 1852. In 1852, First Church in Atlantic City was created to reach out to the people in the community. It was followed by Central Church in 1894, Christ Church in that very same year, and then St. Paul's in 1879. Our congregation goes all the way back to there. And each and every move that the congregation makes is a move to reach out into the community and to bring more people into the family of Christ. Eventually, those 4 churches merged to be stronger together and to reach out and to serve the community. then back in the 1950s when they did that. They got everything together, and at the same time, we were building here. We put in a basement, a brand new sanctuary, and we even welcomed the Northfield Elementary School, who met right here in this building while they were building their building. We reached out to the community to serve, to invite people in. We are Joshua people. We always look forward with hope. We trust in God, even though we don't know necessarily what tomorrow will bring. If He's calling us there, and if we honor His calling, then He will give us what He has promised. Back in 1997, the churches in Atlantic City, they then joined with a church that was called Northfield. And they created a strong congregation of people. They came together and they called themselves the Good Shepherd Church. And yes, the names have changed, but the mission has always been the same. To spread the gospel of Jesus Christ out into the world. And to invite others into the family of Christ. To believe what you and I believe. To trust in what you and I trust. To be followers of Joshua, our great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. And to know that God's promises hold fast and true. You know, when I researched the history of Northfield when I first came here, this city is centered on Methodism. It's centered on serving the community and spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ. Ezra Lake himself was converted right here at a camp meeting. Ezra Lake and then his brother went across the bridge into Ocean City. Well, at that time there was no bridge, and you had to ride the barge over. And there they created the Ocean City Tabernacle. And Methodism is going like crazy in Ocean City. And it continued to spread, all because the congregations of this church are Joshua people. And always looking forward in hope. Reaching people has always been our mission. We didn't put in air conditioning to make ourselves comfortable. We put in air conditioning so that new people in the community would come to church. We don't take care of this building to make ourselves comfortable. We take care of this building so people can come here and find rest. So they can come and participate in support groups like AA and NA. So that young boys can come here in scouting programs and learn how to be fine young men representative of the world and to take care of their community. We take care of this building so people can come for counseling and direction and guidance. We take care of this building so that you can come together and support and encourage one another, celebrate weddings and baptisms, and yes, even funerals. We are Joshua people. And we are always looking forward with hope. With hope. It's the same thing that drove us to join with the Hub and Mission Central. It's the same thing that opened the doors here so that we can collect flood buckets and help kits for people all around the world. It's the same thing that caused us to open our doors when Hurricane Sandy hit. We weren't flooded here, but our community was. Tractor trailer loads of donations came to this building. And we unloaded, we packed, and we delivered. You did all that because you were Joshua people. You're always looking forward with hope. Now I know there's some days it seems like hope is really hard. There's people this week who are still reeling from funerals. And hope seems a distant object. But that doesn't mean that our future is absolutely hopeless. It means as long as we're still Joshua people, and we're always looking forward with hope, we know that tomorrow, wherever God leads us, is much better than where we came from. Turning back is never an option. God never said to His people in Scripture, okay, now turn around and go back where you were. He said, no, I will lead, and you will follow. And I will take you to what land? The promised land. Because God always sticks to His promise. Do you know that there are some weeks here when literally hundreds of materials are dropped off? Hundreds of flood buckets. Hundreds of health kits. There are nights here when 50 people get together to make peanut butter and jelly sandwich lunches for people who don't have food to eat. This is what drives us. This is what causes us to do the mission and ministry in our community and continue to reach out to the people. Now, there's one thing that we cannot run from in this church. And being here 10 years, I can tell you I know this firsthand. I'm getting older. It's true. I know I don't look it. I'm older than I was 10 years ago. The church is aging. The church is always aging. And that should be a call upon our hearts and our service to reach out to our younger people. It has to be. We have to encourage them to continue to be part of what God is calling them to do in their lives. This past week we had some kids at camp. Next week we have 4 kids that are going to summer camp, what we call Bible camp, but they call summer camp. And they're going to just research what is God calling upon their hearts. How can they figure this out and then serve the world? We have youth who are confirmed here who are now playing in our band in our church. We have youth here who are confirmed here who are now running our technology and our media. We have youth here in our church who are confirmed that come and play and use their musical talents to allow us to be able to worship better. These are the youth. These are the future of our church. And they're relying upon you and I to call them into ministry, to encourage them and to support them. They're relying upon you and I to get their butts in the car and bring them to church. I'm serious. We get them in our cars and we take them to school. We get them in our cars and we take them to play dates. We get them in our cars and we take them shopping. We get them in our cars and we take them to all the different activities and all the practices and all the rehearsals that they have. It is more important for you to get them in your car and bring them to church. Because they are the future of our church. They are the future Joshua people. And they need us. They need us to tell them what it means to be a descendant of Joshua. So that they too can always look with hope in the future. You have to know that some of our children see the hope very dark. They don't see what the purpose is. You have to know that some of our children are really struggling in this world. And we have to teach them what it means to look forward with hope and what that looks like. There are a lot of superheroes in the Bible, but I have one very current superhero. He actually is a relative of mine. People ask me this a lot, and it is true. Tony Stark. He's a superhero. He's a relative of mine. He goes by the name of Iron Man. So if you've seen the movie, please don't ask me again if Tony's my relative. Yes, he is. But I wanted to share with you, Tony has this great quote in his movie. It really resonates with how I feel about you being a superhero in this world. Tony says, heroes are made by the path they choose, not by the powers they are graced with. You are all superheroes. You may not feel like you can fly through the air, that you can leap tall buildings in a single bound, or you can run faster than a speeding bullet. But God doesn't call the people who are already equipped. He equips the people that He calls. He just asks that you choose the right path. It's that simple. We become superheroes when we choose the right path. When we look forward with hope. When we answer God's call and we enter into the promised land even though we don't know what it looks like. And we know that when we get there, God has our backs. God will give us what we need. He'll give us the resources to do what we want to do, to accomplish what we want to accomplish, to reach people in this world, to spread His word, to bring them into the family. So the question this morning is, which path are you choosing? Are you choosing the path of doubt, fear, and despair? Are you someone who says, no, we need to turn around and go back, no matter how bad it was, because this is the way we've always done it? Or are you the Joshua descendant? Are you the one who's always looking forward with hope? Are you the one who puts aside doubt and fear and despair and relies upon your faith and trusts in God? The one who has hope for the future. The one who's looking for God's direction. Knowing that what kind of land is out there waiting for us? Promised land. And God never reneges our promise. Amen.